ones here. Supply Network Dynamics Chapter 10, Part 5, the business benefits. Okay, what you can see here, so how did this process perform? Well, marvelously, I would like to say. These supply chains went up what we didn't know at the time, I still remember, is that when we started this process in September 2000 more or less, is that the first week that we did it, we had all the data in there, and there had to be some kind of a mistake, because what it said, our calculations, was that there was enough supply in the supply chain coming to meet all demand. And there was absolute certainty throughout the supply chain that that couldn't be the case. It was pretty sure that there would be 1-2 years of shortages coming down, where the market would grow faster than the suppliers could supply. So that had to be some kind of calculation error. So we did nothing about it. The second week, the same thing, and then gradually some doubts started to creep in. Perhaps it's not a calculation error, perhaps that's really the case. And this took several weeks, and so we talk September 2000, and what you learned from the Chapter 4 and Chapter 5 is actually that this market collapsed somewhere shortly before Christmas or in January. But we saw the signs already in this process in September 2000. This was one of the reasons why I wrote my little email to then the CEO of ASML, because I saw, hey, in this business at least, the good times are already over. So in this case, it took 3 or 4 weeks actually before the decision could be made, let's ramp down. I should tell a bit more about that even. The planner was in charge of setting up these wafers. Said after a while, after 3 weeks or so, you know what, if I actually, my bosses have fought so hard for these capacity slots earlier this year to get them in there, and now I'm going to say I won't use this slot that I have here in the factory for producing, I will get fired. And she was probably right also. So what we had to do, the process had to escalate to a senior management level, where we say, hey, this is coming from this process. Sorry, but we need to scale down. And as a result, indeed, this took 4 weeks or so to respond. But we were 3 months ahead of the curve for all the other businesses, and many other businesses in semiconductors lost tens, hundreds of millions in the early months of 2001, but we were there on time. And this is what you see. So the yellow line is the stock that is in the supply chain. As soon up here the collaborative planning process was not operational, and as soon as it became operational, you saw that we quickly downscaled the stock towards levelers, much more synchronized, and indeed up here what you don't want is obsolescence towards the end of a life cycle, and here we had some obsolescence, but in the collaborative planning process we could minimize that, a very smooth ramp down, which is a great business case for less obsolescence. The other through during the ramp up, we also had that in the years and months that followed. Again, here you see that the cumulative demand and the cumulative supply stay very closely together. And when there was a ramp down again, such as here towards the end, you see that within 2 weeks, when the demand drops, it took us 2 sessions to realize that this was not a noise but a real signal, and we managed to scale down also. So in this case here, where there's a very steep increase in demand, the process stays calm and doesn't oversteer, doesn't overreact. And yes, we increased productions considerably, but we didn't overreact. So these were actually quite some good benefits. An extremely conservative estimate of the savings then puts this at something like perhaps 28 million in products and 16 million in inventories. But you could, but there are many benefits here that are difficult to quantify. At least the whole process had a payback within a few months. The relationship between the parties improved a lot, but all the things you would like, less obsolescence, lower inventories, higher sales, All these things worked out marvelously. I should mention though that although you do need to put a monetary number in these kinds of sheets, it's quite easy to be either too optimistic or too conservative in putting a euro value or a dollar value there. Nevertheless, this is what Philips publicly announced, that it saved this process. That may have cost them $500,000, $1 million, I don't know. Again, depending on how you count. But a pretty good business case indeed.